The wind howled across the desolate wasteland, carrying with it fine grains of sand that stung Lyra's already bruised skin. Her body ached, her limbs trembling with exhaustion. She had been wandering for days, her once vibrant green skin now dull and dry from dehydration. The twin moons of this forsaken planet shone down, casting eerie shadows over the cracked ground. Her people had left her here. Not because she was a criminal, not because she had done something wrong. They abandoned her because she was weak. Lyra was the smallest of her kind, a disappointment to her species, the Valari. Among them, only the strong were considered worthy. Those who showed signs of weakness, whether physical or emotional, were discarded, left to die on uninhabited worlds like this one. She stumbled, barely catching herself before falling face first into the dust. The taste of dirt and blood filled her mouth. She wasn't going to make it. Her vision blurred. Her knees gave out. The stars above seemed to spin in circles as darkness pulled her under. Then, a sound. A low, deep hum. Not the wind. Not the planet's shifting crust. Something unnatural. Her body refused to move, but her mind screamed. A ship. Someone was here. She tried to lift her head, but the effort was too much. She lay still, breathing shallowly as the sound grew louder, closer. A shadow passed over her, blocking the moonlight. Then came a loud metallic hiss, a ship's landing gear deploying. Through her half-closed eyes, she saw the silhouette of a figure stepping out. It was tall, broad-shouldered, and its movements were deliberate. More followed, their footsteps heavy on the dirt. Humans. Her heart pounded with a new kind of fear. She had never seen a human in person before. Only the stories remained. Stories whispered by the elders, warning of beasts who consumed worlds, who tore through armies like paper, monsters that took pleasure in destruction. And now they were here. Lyra willed herself to move, to escape, but her body refused. All she could do was lie there, helpless, as the shadows approached. A voice, deep and strange, rumbled above her. "We've got something here." Another voice, softer but firm. "She's barely breathing." A pause. Then, against all reason, gentle hands lifted her off the ground. Her mind screamed at the betrayal of her body as warmth enveloped her. She was supposed to fear them, but in their grasp, she felt something she had never known before. Safety. Before she could understand why, darkness swallowed her once more. Lyra drifted between the edges of consciousness. Strange sounds filled the air, low voices, the hum of machines, the soft beeping of unfamiliar technology. She could feel something warm against her skin, a sensation she had not felt in days. It was comforting. She forced her eyes open, blinking against the bright artificial light above her. The ceiling was smooth, metallic, and lined with strange panels. This was no Valari ship. The air was cleaner, crisper, but the scent was unfamiliar, like metal and something else she couldn't quite place. Then she heard them. They're awake. The voice was deep, strong, and undeniably human. Panic surged through her, and she jolted upright. Pain shot through her body as her weakened muscles protested the sudden movement. Her breath came in short gasps as her mind screamed warnings. Danger. Escape. Monsters. Something beeped. She looked down and saw she was connected to a machine, strange tubes running into her arm, pulsing with a faint blue liquid. Instinctively, she tried to yank them out. Whoa, easy there. She flinched at the sound and turned to see them. 3 humans stood in the room. One was a giant of a male, arms crossed over his broad chest, his short dark hair slightly messy. His eyes, however, were calm, not the bloodthirsty gaze she had imagined from the stories. The second was a female, her long brown hair tied back, wearing strange clothing with symbols Lyra couldn't understand. She was holding a small device, scanning it over Lyra's body. The third was younger, perhaps closer to Lyra's own age. His expression was softer, almost concerned. But they were humans, the monsters her kind had feared for generations. She curled against the bed, pressing herself into the corner, her small frame trembling. The female human sighed, shaking her head. She's terrified. Of course she is, the younger one muttered. Look at her. She's skin and bones. She probably thinks we're going to eat her. The larger male huffed. Not helping. Jonah. Lyra's breath hitched. Eat her. The elders had said humans were carnivores, violent creatures that devoured anything they conquered. The woman crouched beside her bed, keeping her hands visible, her voice softer than Lyra expected. You're safe. We're not here to hurt you. Lyra didn't move. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but she was too weak. The younger one, Jonah, hesitated before taking a small package from his belt. He unwrapped it carefully, revealing food. A soft, brown bar with small pieces of something embedded inside. He broke off a piece and popped it into his mouth, chewing slowly before holding out another piece to her. Lyra eyed it with suspicion. "It's just protein," Jonah said. "I swear it's not poisoned." She hesitated. Her stomach twisted painfully. How many days had it been since she had last eaten? Slowly, cautiously, she reached out, her thin fingers brushing against his before snatching the piece away. She sniffed it. It didn't smell like anything dangerous. Taking a small bite, her mouth was instantly flooded with a taste she had never experienced before. Rich, slightly sweet, and warm. Her body reacted before her mind could stop it. She devoured the rest, barely chewing. Jonah chuckled. Guess she was hungry. The large man sighed. "We need to let Captain Reynolds know she's awake. He'll want to talk to her." The woman stood. "Yeah, but let's give her a little time first. She's been through hell." They turned to leave, but Jonah lingered. He gave Lyra a small smile. "We're really not that bad, you know." Then he was gone, leaving Lyra alone with her thoughts. She stared down at her hands. Everything she had ever known told her to fear them. But right now, trapped in a cold metal room, she wasn't afraid of them. She was afraid of what her own kind had done to her. Lyra sat motionless on the hospital bed, her fingers still lightly dusted with crumbs from the protein bar Jonah had given her. The taste lingered on her tongue, a cruel reminder of her hunger. The humans had left her alone, but her mind was far from at ease. She had been taught all her life that humans were monsters, vicious predators that conquered and destroyed everything in their path. Yet, they had fed her, they had patched her wounds, they had spoken to her, not with threats, but with concern. Were the elders wrong? A soft hiss startled her. The door to the room slid open, and the massive human, the one who had spoken little but observed everything, stepped inside. He moved carefully, slowly, as if trying not to startle a wounded animal, which, Lyra supposed, she was. "Captain wants to see you," he rumbled. She tensed, heart pounding. The captain? That word was familiar. It meant leader, commander, decision maker. Her people had left her to die, and now she was in enemy hands. What would this leader decide to do with her? "Come on," the human said. "I won't drag you, but we don't have all day." Her muscles locked in place. Her body screamed at her to flee, but she had nowhere to go. These humans had flying ships, advanced technology, weapons that could obliterate planets. What could she possibly do? The large human, sensing her hesitation, sighed. "Look, kid, you have two choices. Sit here and starve, or come meet the captain." Lyra's stomach twisted at the word starve. Reluctantly, she slid off the bed. Her legs trembled, but she forced them to hold her weight. The human made no move to grab her, no attempt to force her along. Instead, he simply turned and walked toward the door. Lyra followed. The hallways were strange, made of cold metal with blinking lights and symbols she couldn't understand. Humans passed by, glancing at her with curiosity but not hostility. The air smelled clean, too clean, as if it had been filtered of all natural scents. She kept her distance from the massive human leading her, but he didn't seem to mind. Finally, they entered a large chamber. A human sat at a desk, flipping through a glowing tablet of some kind. His uniform was decorated with strange symbols, and his dark eyes flicked up as she entered. "So," he said, setting the tablet down. "You're awake." Lyra swallowed, staring at him cautiously. He was older than the others, but not weak. His presence filled the room. He gestured to a chair across from him. "Sit." She didn't move. The large human sighed. "She's not much of a talker, Captain." The captain smirked. "I don't blame her." He turned back to Lyra. "I'm Captain Reynolds. And you, young lady, are a mystery." Lyra said nothing. "You were found barely alive on a barren planet. No supplies, no distress signal, no sign of a crash. Just you, half-starved and unconscious." His gaze sharpened, "And what I want to know is, why?" Lyra clenched her fists. "Because my people left me to die." But she couldn't say that. The captain studied her. "You're Valari, aren't you?" She stiffened. "We've run into your kind before," he continued. "Mostly in trade disputes. You don't like us much." That was an understatement. The Valari considered humans unclean, dangerous, primitive despite their technology. To them, humans were little more than beasts that had stumbled into space. And yet here she was, alive because of them. Captain Reynolds leaned forward. "I need to know something, kid." Lyra flinched at the word kid. It felt so familiar. "Did someone leave you on that planet?" Her breath hitched. He knew. She didn't respond, but something in her expression must have given her away, because Reynolds sighed. He exchanged a glance with the massive human before shaking his head. Figures, he muttered. He leaned back in his chair. All right, here's the deal. We're a rescue ship. We pick you up because we don't let people die if we can help it. But if you're going to stay here, you need to follow our rules. You're not a prisoner, but we're not going to risk our crew either. Liara blinked. Not a prisoner. Her people would never have given such a choice. I'll have someone bring you real food, Reynolds continued. You'll get a room. But until we know more about your situation, you'll be under supervision. Liara's mind spun. She had gone from certain death to this, a place where even the so-called monsters showed her more kindness than her own kind. She didn't know what to say. Any questions? Reynolds asked. She hesitated. Finally, she whispered, Why? The room fell silent. Reynolds studied her carefully, then said, Because it's the right thing to do. Liara's chest ached. The right thing. Her own kind had left her to die. Yet the creatures she had been raised to fear had saved her life, simply because they believed it was right. She lowered her gaze, struggling to process what that meant. For the first time in her life, she wondered, who were the real monsters? Liara sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the steaming plate of food in front of her. It smelled rich, foreign, nothing like the nutrient paste she had been raised on. A young human woman with dark hair and a kind smile stood beside her, arms crossed. It's just soup, she said. It won't bite. Liara hesitated. She had been taught that humans were predators, ruthless, violent, and incapable of kindness. And yet, here they were, feeding her. She picked up the spoon with trembling fingers and dipped it into the broth. The warmth spread through her, the taste unlike anything she had ever known. The human woman grinned. Told you. Liara glanced at her warily. Why are you doing this? The woman blinked, surprised. Because you need food. No, Liara shook her head. Why are you being kind? The woman's smile faded slightly. You really don't know, do you? She exhaled. Because that's what humans do. We take care of each other, and sometimes we take care of those who need it, even if they're not human. Liara's chest tightened. Her own people had left her to die. And yet these so-called monsters were treating her as if she mattered. She swallowed another spoonful of soup, unable to respond. The truth hurts. Later that day, Captain Reynolds summoned her again. This time, the room was dimly lit, with only the glow of the holographic screen illuminating the space. The large human, Jonah, she had learned, stood beside the captain. We found something you need to see, Reynolds said, motioning to the screen. Liara hesitated, then stepped closer. A grainy recording played. At first, it was just a view of a barren world, the one she had been stranded on. Then, a Valari ship appeared in the sky. Her breath caught. The ship hovered for a moment, its insignia clear as day. It was her people. The recording had audio. A voice, cold and indifferent, echoed through the room. This one is weak. She will not survive. We cannot afford to bring a burden with us. Leave her. Liara's knees nearly buckled. She knew those voices. They were the commanders of her people. They had decided to abandon her. Not because of danger. Not because they had no choice. Because she was weak. She squeezed her hands into fists, nails digging into her palms. Reynolds watched her, his expression unreadable. You already suspected this, didn't you? Liara swallowed hard. She had always feared this truth, but hearing it confirmed made it worse. They left me, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Jonah crossed his arms. Yeah, kid. They did. Silence filled the room. Liara's chest burned, but she refused to let them see her pain. She couldn't. Reynolds studied her for a long moment before speaking. I've seen a lot of things in this galaxy, he said. Empires rise and fall. Rulers make selfish choices, but what I haven't seen is humans leaving their own behind. We don't do that. Liara's eyes snapped to him. His voice was firm, unshaken. Jonah grunted. Even the worst of us would rather die fighting than leave someone to rot. The words hit harder than Liara expected. Her own people, the ones who had raised her, who had trained her, had deemed her unworthy of survival. Yet these so-called monsters refused to abandon even their weakest. The thought sent a shiver through her. She had spent her whole life fearing humans. Now, for the first time, she wasn't sure who the monsters really were. Liara sat in silence long after the recording stopped playing. The words of her own people echoed in her mind. She is weak. Leave her. Her hands trembled, but not from fear. It was something else. Something heavier. Betrayal. All her life, she had been raised to believe that the Vailari were superior, stronger, wiser, united, and yet they had left her to die. Across the room, Captain Reynolds leaned against the table, arms crossed. Jonah stood beside him, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched until Reynolds finally spoke. "You all right?" The question caught her off guard. Was she all right? Her people had abandoned her. The humans, her supposed enemies, had saved her. She had spent years fearing them. But now, she lifted her gaze to the captain. "Why did you show me this?" "Because you deserve to know," Reynolds said simply. A bitter laugh escaped her. "Deserve." She clenched her fists. "I was nothing to them. A burden." Jonah grunted. "Seems to me like you were just surrounded by the wrong people." The words struck her harder than she expected. She had been fighting to hold on to the idea that the Vailari were noble, that this was somehow a mistake. But it wasn't. They had chosen to leave her behind. She had been nothing to them. And yet, these humans, whom she had been taught to fear, had risked their own safety to save her. Liara exhaled sharply, trying to bury the emotion rising in her chest. Reynolds watched her carefully. "You don't owe them anything anymore, kid." That was the moment it hit her. She had spent her whole life believing she belonged to the Vailari. But the truth was, she had never truly belonged anywhere. Until now. The test. Later that evening, Jonah found her in the training bay. "You still brooding, or are you actually going to do something about it?" Liara turned to him, frowning. "Do what?" Jonah tossed a practice knife toward her. She caught it instinctively. "Prove them wrong." Liara's grip tightened around the handle. "You think I care what they think?" Jonah shrugged. "Not really. But you care what you think." She opened her mouth to argue, but the words died before she could speak. "Was he wrong?" Jonah smirked. "Simon, princess. Let's see what you've got." She narrowed her eyes. "I'm not a princess." "Then show me." Liara didn't hesitate. She lunged. Jonah blocked her strike easily, knocking her arm aside. She gritted her teeth and attacked again. Faster this time. Sharper. But no matter how fast she moved, Jonah was faster. Every strike, every counter, every shift in movement, he was always ahead of her. She had trained her whole life in Vailari combat techniques. She had been one of the best. And yet, this human made her feel slow. She gritted her teeth. "You're holding back." Jonah raised a brow. "You think you can handle me going all out?" "Try me." Jonah chuckled then, without warning, moved. Liara barely had time to react before she found herself on the ground, the knife torn from her grip. She gasped, stunned. Jonah stood over her, offering a hand. "Not bad," he said, "for someone who's still learning." Her pride burned, but she couldn't deny it. He was better. She took his hand, letting him pull her up. Jonah smirked. "You've got potential, but you're gonna have to let go of whatever nonsense they drilled into your head about humans." Liara hesitated. For so long, she had believed humans were savages, monsters. But now, she wasn't sure what she believed anymore. She met Jonah's gaze. "Teach me." Jonah's smirk widened. "Thought you'd never ask." The Vailari warship loomed over the human vessel like a silent predator, its dark hull gleaming under the distant light of a dying sun. Liara stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, staring at the massive screen displaying the enemy fleet. Her people had returned, not to rescue her, but to erase her. Captain Reynolds stood beside her, arms crossed. His voice was calm, but she could hear the steel beneath it. "They're hailing us." Liara took a steady breath. "Put them through." The screen flickered, revealing the cold, familiar face of Commander X. Ivan. His violet eyes locked onto her, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he sneered. "I see you have survived, despite all odds." His gaze flicked to the humans behind her, or perhaps because of them. Liara felt her stomach twist, but she didn't look away. "You left me to die." Ivan's expression remained impassive. "We discarded the weak. As we always have." The words should have hurt, but they didn't. Not anymore. Reynolds took a step forward, his voice laced with quiet fury. "You abandoned a child. She was unworthy of the Vailari," Ivan said coldly. "And now she stands among you." A silence stretched across the bridge. Then Sivan leaned forward. "You should not have taken her in, Captain." The threat was clear. Liara's fists clenched. "And if I refuse to return?" Sivan let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Return. You misunderstand, Liara. There is no place for you among us. You are an embarrassment, a stain on our legacy." The words should have shattered her, but they didn't, because she finally understood the truth. She had spent her entire life chasing the approval of a people who had never valued her. But the humans, they had risked everything to protect her. And now, it was her turn. She took a deep breath. Then I guess it's a good thing I'm not one of you anymore. Sivan's expression darkened. You choose them over your own kind. She lifted her chin. They are my kind. Sivan's eyes burned with fury. Then you will die with them. The transmission cut. The battle begins. The Valeri ships moved like silent wraiths, their sleek forms slicing through the void. Reynolds turned sharply. Shields up. Jonah, get to the cannons. Jonah grinned, cracking his knuckles. Been waiting for this. The first blast struck. The Vanguard trembled, alarms screaming through the ship. Liara didn't hesitate. She sprinted to her station, fingers flying across the console. They're jamming our long-range comms, she reported. We won't be able to call for backup. Reynolds muttered a curse. Figures. They want to make sure no one knows we were ever here. Jonah's voice crackled over the comms. Then let's make some noise. The ship's cannons roared to life. Explosions lit up the darkness, but the Valeri were fast. Too fast. Liara's heart pounded. They couldn't outrun them, and in a direct fight, they were outnumbered. But then she remembered something. A weakness. A flaw in Valeri ship designs, one she had never spoken of before. Her fingers trembled over the controls. This was treason. But so was leaving a child to die. She turned to Reynolds. I have an idea. He didn't even hesitate. Do it. Liara's hands flew across the console, reprogramming the ship's systems. The Vanguard twisted sharply, diving toward a dense asteroid field nearby. The Valeri ships followed. That was their mistake. Liara adjusted the ship's energy output, creating a faint distortion, a signature that the Valeri sensors would mistake for an overloaded core. A critical failure. Just as she predicted, the enemy ships moved in for the kill, closing the gap. And that's when she detonated the field. The explosion rippled through space, shattering rock and sending shockwaves through the enemy formation. Valeri ships were fast, but they weren't built for debris fields. Liara watched as several of them slammed into the floating wreckage, their shields overloading. The rest scattered, their perfect formation broken. Jonah whooped over the comms. Damn kid. That was beautiful. Reynolds grinned. Remind me never to play chess against you. But Liara wasn't done. She locked onto the Valeri flagship, Sivan's ship, and fired. The plasma bolt struck true, tearing into the ship's weakened hull. She watched as Sivan's ship burned. For a moment, she thought he would still try to fight. But then the remaining Valeri ships retreated. For the first time, they were the ones running. And Liara. She wasn't running anymore. Aftermath. The Vanguard limped through the stars, battle-worn but victorious. Liara sat in the common room, staring at the empty mug in her hands. Reynolds stepped in. Couldn't sleep. She shook her head, still processing. He sat across from her. You did good, kid. She met his gaze. They'll come back. Reynolds nodded. Probably. A long silence stretched between them. Then he leaned forward. So, what now? Liara took a deep breath and smiled. I think it's time I stopped looking back. She wasn't Valeri anymore. She wasn't abandoned. She wasn't alone. For the first time in her life, she knew exactly where she belonged. She looked up at Reynolds and grinned. So, when's my first mission?